For me, it's very hard to have a conversation with a normal human being. It's very hard because I don't have anything to say. It's just, there's nothing to say. But highest performing entrepreneur on the planet, we talk all day. Why? Because we're the only ones that really understand each other. And two, we're the only things that are actually going to get anything done. And so I work with the 0.1%, maybe the 1%, 0.1% really. And so most people are like, oh, that's a small number. I go, no. I live in abundance. So there's 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion. So 0.1% of 8 billion is 8 million. 8 million is a lot of people. And those 8 million employ and create the companies that employ everyone else. So by helping this one type of person, I'm actually helping the world.
Hey, on this episode of Business Growth, I have Justin Breen. Justin has a unique ability, unlike hardly anyone I've ever seen. I mean, this is some unique skill set that you definitely need to listen to because Justin is a connector. And Justin has this ability to find, from his journalist background, find the unseen material, the unseen relationships, connect things together, and make stuff happen faster than just about anyone I've noticed. So Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, 3-2-10-3 meets 8-6-7-1. So this should be a very interesting conversation for sure.
Now for you as a listener, Justin just rattled off our Kolbe numbers. What that means for you in the Kolbe language is how we process information, how we take action, how we operate as individuals. If you haven't gone through Kolbe, I highly suggest it. So your Kolbe numbers show that you are a deep thinker. You're a person that's going to be connected, but walk us through what it is that you do. You've actually only been in the business world for a short amount of time, but had a massive amount of success. So help us understand how you did it so quickly.
I'm 100% simplifier. So I just hear blah, 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 simplify, execute, blah, 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 simplify, execute. And it's very easy for me to just hear the dings, and the dings turn into a 300-word story. And then I just know my brain's just a CRM of geniuses. So I can talk to someone in Canada and they'll say something random, but be like, oh, I know someone in Utah that thinks like that. Connect. So it's just intro. And the purpose of my life is to be a connecting superhero for every visionary, abundance, investment mindset entrepreneur and share their stories with the world. So besides hanging out with my wife and 2 young sons, that's 100% of my day, not 99%, 100%. So it's really easy for me. It's like drinking. It's like breathing air for me. So I just stay in my zone of genius 100% of the time.
So how did you go from journalist to understanding this zone of genius? There's a gap between there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And so I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. Not really. I'm not a PR firm owner. I'm not a journalist who happens to be a journalist. I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. And so I was always this person. I didn't know it until I started my first business 4 years ago. I just didn't know it. And then I'm like, oh, I just never really belonged in corporate world. And I just don't fit in there. And they would always give me these weird jobs. As a journalist, they didn't know what to do with me. And so I was a journalist for 20 years and created my entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So just saw a problem, created a solution, problem solved, successful global company. It's very simple.
Yeah, I mean, that's a simple way to say it. But, we see a lot of other people that say the same thing. They'll say, oh, I was frustrated with my job and I tried to create a solution, but they never did. So how is it that you actually created the breakthrough?
Yeah. So again, my Kolbe, I have high quick start and high follow through. Most entrepreneurs at the highest level are like you, where they're very high quick start and very low follow through. So they have to hire 1 million people. Otherwise nothing will get done. So I just say it, do it. I just hit the gas, pump the brakes, hit the gas, pump the brakes. And then my strength finders are activator, maximizer, achiever. So it's not ideation, it's not futuristic, it's not input, it's not strategic, it's result. Get it done. And so I love talking to people like you and these super high level entrepreneurs that are just like idea. And then I'm just like, simplify, execute. It's just perfect collaboration. It's very easy for me because people like you are the ones that create the companies that change the world. And the purpose of my life is to share stories of yours that change the world. People that are actually executing will invest in the area.
So how did you narrow in the focus? Because I think that's where a lot of people get wrong. Before they idea, execute. I think oftentimes people are on the wrong idea. So how did you nail the right idea?
Right. Again, so I'm low in idea. Out of 34 strength finders, I'm 32 out of 34 in ideation. I don't have a lot of ideas, but if I do have a good one, I execute it. Um, and ideas are meaningless to me without execution. Talk is meaningless to me without investment. It's meaningless. And so, like you said, most people talk and they never do anything about it. And the difference between the highest performing entrepreneurs on the planet and someone who fizzles out or gets a job and can't handle this is they make, the second group makes excuses. They just make excuses. At the highest level, there are no excuses, only investments. So I just do it. And I've never understood people that talk and don't do anything about it. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So if I do have a good idea, I do it at the highest level.
So for you as an executor, do you have a team support that's able to help you execute? And what does that communication look like with them?
Yeah, so I have some freelancers that do some of the stories, but for me, this is so easy and it's not work at all. I work 0 hours a week, so I like to do a lot of it myself because it's in my unique ability. Now that said, I've started a new company. Basically, I'm annoyed by all these platforms that let everybody in because at the highest level, people don't have time for that. They just want the intro. So I've started that company with a business partner that I've met in Strategic Coach. That's one of the top entrepreneurial group in the world. I'm very confident saying that. So he's in 10X with me. I've never met him in person. He's in San Francisco. I'm in the Chicago area. And so he's what I would describe as a visionary integrator. And so I just stay in my zone of genius and he stays in his, and then we're building a team in that regard. But I don't have to do anything that I'm not good at. So it's a beautiful partnership and combination.
So let's go into your business and the business model that you follow, the idea and execution piece, and then the impact that you make. For you listeners, we're using a lot of language that is very common between us. Strategic Coach, as Justin mentioned, is the top organization for helping people understand their unique ability and just working on the things that they're very best at. We're using this language, we're going to talk about things called impact filters. We're going to be talking about other pieces that are really helpful, and you may be familiar with it, you may not. So let's jump into your business itself, how you operate it, how you are using the impact filters to make an impact. We really want to get into those details to help listeners cause more growth in their organizations.
Right. So the formula for creating a successful global company is very simple. It's because I'm a simplifier and all my brain hears is blah, blah, blah and turns it into patterns. That's just how it works. So the formula for building a successful global company is you see a problem, create solution to problem, problem solve, successful global company. And so see a problem, create solution to problem, problem solve, successful global company. So I was a journalist for 20 years and created my entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So saw a problem, created solution, problem solve, successful global company. And at the highest level, there's no competition, only collaboration. I don't compete with anyone. I'm the buyer. People pay my firm, but I'm the buyer. I don't sell anything. And so with that background, my company's entire process is on the website. There's no tricks, there's no gimmicks, there's no nonsense. Like, this is what my company does. And so as a journalist, the problem, I was annoyed hundreds of times a day for 20 years, hundreds of times a day, receiving useless press releases from people I didn't know. So that's not only annoying, it's a problem. So my firm created a solution to that problem, where my firm writes actual newsworthy, interesting stories similar to what I did as a journalist. It becomes a link on the client's website under news or blog, so it looked like a story you see in the Salt Lake Tribune or Chicago Tribune or wherever. Take that link, pitch it to media all over the world. Media's interested, put them in touch with the client. Problem solved. So it solves the problem. So it works with any business size, any location, any vertical. That's meaningless. That doesn't matter what you do. That's meaningless. It matters who you are. And then I only partner with people with 3 attributes in their mindset, because when you have 3 attributes in these mindset, you can only be one of two types of people, because I'm a simplifier and I see patterns. So those attributes are visionary, abundance, investment. Visionary, abundance, investment. And people with those attributes, you can only be one of 2 types of people. 1, you're running a high 6-figure to 10-figure business. You see your family and friends whenever you want to, and you do what you like to do and what you're good at. Or you're going to be one of those people. You're not there revenue profit-wise, but you will be. So there's no what do you cost or charge. There's no nickel and diming. It just eliminates all that. It eliminates all nickel and dime businesses and all nickel and dime thinking. It only attracts the top people in the world. So we have multiple billionaires that are clients and multiple people that are dirt broke, because people with those attributes in their mindset, they will find a way to make the investment. They won't ask, what do you cost? They will find a way to make an investment, period.
So for you as a listener, you may have thought that this was on 2x speed because of the simplicity and how direct this was.
Well, this is all it is. All this other stuff's meaningless. If you have the right mindset, creates the right network and creates the right opportunities. I mean, I just have the right mindset that attracts the right people, and then they create opportunities for me. And so most people are living in transactional cost scarcity world. I just don't live in that world. I only partner with the people that are in visionary abundance investment.
So what to me is alarming for the outsiders that aren't in this conversation is that most people are having these secondary conversations with all this fluff language and all of this stuff and all this noise. And so, in the tech world, we have this saying called signal versus noise. And there's a lot of noise out there. And you'll notice in Justin's language,
all my company does is cut through the noise and nonsense. All my noise, although my directness weeds out nonsense and attracts greatness. It cuts through all that noise and nonsense. And that's my whole point. So as a journalist, you're besieged by all this noise and nonsense. So my company just solves that problem. Journalists actually thank me for sending them stories. Cuts through that nonsense. It just solves the problem. So it's hilarious because it's just hilarious because the whole world, most of the world is noise and nonsense, and I have no tolerance for that. Directness weeds that all out.
So let's go back to the very beginning, before business was even on your radar. Were you a no nonsense?
Yes.
only signal.
Yes.
Okay, and were you wired that way as a kid as well?
Yeah, so I'm 100% black and white. My wife is 100% gray. She's a pediatrician, so she's warm, loving, empathy, kindness, rules, order, and I'm just like, get it done. So, and as a journalist, most journalists, the good ones, are 100% black and white because there's no opinion. You just do it. You execute. And so the listeners understand. You understand. So when I was born, my dad was 61 and my mom was 27. Okay, so 34-year difference. How did that happen? And so my father was a World War II hero. He'd be 105 if he was alive now. So he was shot down 9 times in combat, became an attorney, came from nothing, no excuses. Became an attorney in the Nuremberg trials, the president of an insurance company. And so he died when I was 13. And my most cherished possession, besides hanging out with my family, is the diary he wrote from the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, which was at the end of World War II. And it's one of the greatest things ever written. I'm a world-class writer. He's a way better writer than I am. And so that diary is my most cherished possession. And I write exactly like he does. Boom, 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 boom. Just inform and entertain. No BS, no nonsense. Inform and entertain. So that's my dad. And my mom was 27 when I was born. So when my dad was in his late 50s, he was driving on an expressway, and a drunk driver went across the median and hit him head on. And the drunk driver was killed instantly. My dad broke every bone in his body, but he survived because you don't figure out a way to survive. And so my mom was his nurse. So my mom literally nursed him back to health. And so most of my day, not all, but most of it's talking to the world's top entrepreneurs, the very top people in the world. And I've never met anyone in my life with more hustle than my mom, ever. No, never. The ultimate survive and thrive, the ultimate. And so you combine that with my dad, then here I am. So I was born to be this person. And most people aren't born to be the highest performing entrepreneur on the planet. They're not. Everyone was born like this. One, nothing would ever get done because you need integrators to follow through on visionary wackadoodness. But two, most people can't, they're not wired to be a high performing entrepreneur. They're wired to get a job, or they're wired to be a small business. And that's fine. But I've always been wired differently. I was born to be this person.
I may give you the nickname Mr. Iceberg because you're very solid, and there's so much substance below the surface that is just amazing. Because I have conversations with entrepreneurs all the time, and they're entrepreneurs that are articulate, and they'll have conversations about, their teams or their ideas or their causes or whatever it is. And what we did in a short amount of time is that we
just simplify,
cut the noise.
Right. There was no, so this is, if we weren't doing an interview, this is how I would talk. So for me, it's very hard to have a conversation with a normal human being. It's very hard because I don't have anything to say. It's just, there's nothing to say. But highest performing entrepreneur on the planet, we talk all day. Why? Because we're the only ones that really understand each other. And two, we're the only things that are actually going to get anything done. And so I work with the 0.1%. 0.1%, maybe the 1%, 0.1% really. And so most people are like, oh, that's a small number. I go, no. I live in abundance. So there's 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion. So 0.1% of 8 billion is 8 million. 8 million is a lot of people, And those 8 million employ and create the companies that employ everyone else. So by helping this one type of person, I'm actually helping the world.
I'm going to ask a question that's somewhat obvious. It's going to be very obvious to you, maybe somewhat obvious to the audience. But the question is, do you turn off people by the way that you act? And if so,
absolutely,
why are you okay with that?
100% okay with that, because I'm not talking to the 99 out of 100. I'm talking to the 1 out of 100 that's going to get stuff done. That's how I help the other 99. 99 of 100 aren't going to do anything, and that's fine. That's fine. But it's the other type of person that I turn away or turn off is arrogant people, because arrogant people think they're great at everything, and they think I sound arrogant. But actually, I'm just confident, and all confidence does is attract other confident people. And in terms of connecting people on a global level and getting people news at the very highest level, there are very few people in the world that are better at it than I am. But other than that, and being a very good dad and average to above average husband, I'm useless to society. I have no other skills. So why would I go out of my zone of genius? It's pointless. So arrogant people think they're great at everything. I'm terrible, horribly terrible at almost everything. That's the difference between confident and arrogant people.
Now, what else would you say are things that you are good at inside your business besides finding the unique ability of the stories, the people? Is there anything inside the business besides that you feel like you are just world-class at?
No.
That's it. And then, so what do you do to make sure the business does not go off the rails?
I mean, this is so easy for me that for me, this is like a 6-year-old tying their shoe. Well, maybe not a 6-year-old, but an adult tying their shoes. This is so easy and fun for me, and I'm always in my zone of genius, so I never get tired of it, never bored. There's no rails to go off of. This is my purpose of my life. So I just stay in the purpose of my life, which I guess, to answer your question, is the rails. I would never go off the rails. There's the rails are the purpose of my life. So there's no going off the rails. And again, most really, really, really high-level entrepreneurs have Colby's similar to yours. Where they're very high quick start and very low follow through. So they have endless ideas, endless. And with that, there's chances to go off the rails. I just focus on this and just double down. I keep doubling down on the same rails. That's fun for me because it's just fun. This isn't even a word for me.
Oh, I love it. So Justin, and you know what I want to do is circle back for you listeners, depending on the type of business that you're in. You know, we've had people on the podcast that are just starting a business. We have people that have exited for a large amount of money. We've had billionaires on the podcast. What would the word be? We'll call it a variety of different types of entrepreneurs and business owners. One thing that is very unique about this conversation is that you would typically have to listen to hours long and have it edited and extracted to get what you just have. This is real. This is direct. This is one of those episodes that you'll probably need to listen to over and over again because there's a hidden language in there. And this hidden language is in the thinking. His focus is so important. So lastly, I want you to cover the impact filter. Help us understand the impact filter that you run of your business, because that will use the framework that our listeners can use for their business. And then we're going to jump in, talk about your business and how we can get the right people to come to you.
Yeah, so if I talk to someone and they ask what do you cost or charge within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I'll never talk to that person again because they're living in transactional world, not transformational world. And if I talk to someone and I realize within 5 or 10 minutes that they're going to take valuable time away from me and my family, I'll never talk to that person again. So that's my litmus test. That's it.
And tell us why someone should come to you, who that person is. And again, the why isn't necessarily you being the seller. You're the buyer in the transaction. You're the one that is just focusing on your unique ability, but help us create the magnet so the right people can come to you. And then with that same side of the magnet, we want to push away everyone that's not a fit.
Right. So people who have already heard this and understand this are going to reach out. That's just what happens is people listen and they're like, oh, is the person I've been looking for. But again, I only partner with people with abundance, visionary investment mindset, abundance, visionary investment. So if you don't have that mindset, don't reach out. If you do, okay. Love to talk.
Perfect. And how can people get in touch with you, Justin?
Sure. Company's called Brepic, and on LinkedIn, Justin Breen, Breen.
Excellent. So what we'll do inside of the show notes, we're going to put a link to the website and to Justin's LinkedIn. Justin is someone that recently came into my life, and he is one of those people that it was, if you've ever been on a hike up in high altitude and you're trying to get a deep breath of air so that you can get the lungs back in your body and feel like you have strength again, that's the type of person that you will feel energized from. I was absolutely amazed from Justin. He came about from a referral connection. And you'll notice that some of the very best people come from the very best people, because like attracts like. And so for you listeners, we'll put the information inside of the show notes so that you can be in touch. Justin, I want to thank you for your time. Please listen to this episode over and over again. There's so much hidden stuff in here that will be helpful for you. So thanks for being on the podcast, Justin.
You're welcome. Really appreciate it.